and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm MEGHAN and these are the headlines. In Myanmar, 2 people have been killed after police fired on the anti-coup protesters in the northern town of Myitkyina. Witnesses said several people were also injured. Over 50 protesters have been killed by security forces since the military seized power last month. Meanwhile, shops, banks and factories have been closed in the biggest city, Yangon, during a crackdown against the coup. Yemen's Houthis have fired missiles at Saudi Arabia's Aramco oil facility in the eastern region. Saudi Energy Ministry said the strike targeted a petroleum tank farm at Ras Tanura port, which is one of the largest oil shipping ports in the world, while a residential area housing thousands of the company's employees at the Tehran facility was also attacked. The ministry said no injuries or material damages have been reported in either attack. International Women's Day is being marked all around the world. The day celebrates women's achievements and increases visibility in the public sphere. Many events are being held across the globe and in Pakistan to make a call for accelerating gender parity. Addressing a ceremony in Islamabad, Pakistan's President Arif Alvi said Islam has guaranteed the rights of women. He said the present government has passed several laws to empower women. The head of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, has ended his historic tour of Iraq with messages of peaceful coexistence. He toured 4 cities and preached peace over war during his meetings with Muslim and Christian leaders. Brazil's coronavirus infections tally has crossed 11 million with over 265,000 deaths. Pakistan has registered nearly 1,600 new cases and 22 more fatalities overnight as its death toll reaches over 13,200. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.59 million lives and infected over 116 million people so far. Serbian tennis great Novak Djokovic has set a record for most weeks at #1 in the 48-year history of the ATP rankings. On Monday, he entered his 311th week at the top of the men's singles rankings, a week longer than Roger Federer's record. Last month, he lifted his 9th Australian Open title in Melbourne. Well, those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. We begin in Myanmar, where 2 people have been killed after police fired on the anti-coup protesters in the northern town of Myitkyina. Meanwhile, shops, factories and banks are closed in Yangon after the trade unions called for a complete shutdown of the economy.
In a statement, the alliance said to continue economic and business activities as usual will only benefit the military. The alliance added the time to take action in defense of democracy is now. Myanmar state media said the military is keeping presence at the universities and hospitals to enforce laws. Local media reported the army has occupied institutions across Myanmar and set up camps there. Nevertheless, crowds demonstrating against last month's coup gathered in Yangon as well as in Mandalay and other cities. Meanwhile, Australia has suspended its defense cooperation program with Myanmar. The United Nations says over 50 protesters have been killed by security forces since the military seized power last month.
Yemen's Houthis have fired missiles at Saudi Arabia's Aramco oil facility in the east. The Saudi Energy Ministry says the strike targeted a petroleum tank farm at Ras Tanura port, one of the largest oil shipping ports in the world.
Just a day after the Saudi-led coalition conducted airstrikes on Houthi military targets in the Yemeni capital Sana'a and other regions, the rebels say they have fired 25 drones in a wide operation in the heart of Saudi Arabia. In a tweet, Houthi spokesperson Yahya Sari said other military sites in Asir and Jazan areas have also been targeted. Meanwhile, the Saudi Energy Ministry also confirmed that a residential area housing company employees at the Dhahran facility was attacked. The ministry said no injuries or material damages have been reported in either attack. The Arab coalition vowed that Riyadh will take all necessary defensive measures and ensure the stability of energy supplies. The escalation comes as the UN steps up diplomatic efforts for a ceasefire to pave the way for the resumption of talks to end the conflict.
At least 18 people have been killed as 2 landmines exploded in Syria's western central province of Hama. Syria's state media says 3 others were injured in the countryside incidents near the city of Salamiyah. The official news agency said all those killed were civilians. It said blasts occurred at 2 landmines left behind by terrorist groups. The observatory says explosives left in fields, along roads, or in buildings by all sides in Syria's conflict have killed hundreds. The UN has said more than 10 million people live in areas contaminated by explosive hazards. Moving on, International Women's Day is being marked all around the world today. The day celebrates women's achievements and increases visibility in the public sphere, all the while calling out inequality. This report has more.
Many events are being organized across the globe to make a call for accelerating gender parity. But unlike previous years, more virtual events are taking place due to the coronavirus pandemic. The UN announced the theme for 2021 as Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. Women have come a long way, but there is still some distance to cover amid hurdles and boundaries.
Every day, the thought that you could be taking home, it was very difficult. And it was very real. You knew that you had to take precautions, but you also knew that as a professional you have a responsibility to your patients and out there. So you couldn't say that I'm going to shield as well because my mom is such a high risk and I want to stay at home. Even though my heart wanted to in a little bit selfishness, but I couldn't do that.
This year saw the inauguration of Kamala Harris as the first female, first Black, and first Asian American U.S. Vice President. Women's struggle achieved another landmark when Tokyo Olympics Committee named Siku Hashimoto as their new president.
My name is Momoko Nosho. I am 22 years old. I want 2021 to be a year where we can have more female leaders, not just in the Tokyo Organizing Committee, but also in companies, politics, and other various areas. I wish for a society where women's voices will be reflected.
It has been a tough year, with data from UN revealing the pandemic could wipe out 25 years of increasing gender equality. But against all odds, women continue to show their strength, whether as frontline health workers, athletes, or policy makers.
From the first Muslim Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto to the youngest Microsoft certified professional Arfa Karim, Pakistani women have proven time and again that they are second to none. In the last year alone, Pakistani women made their country proud with multiple achievements. More details in this report.
Despite the challenging and stressful times amid the ongoing pandemic, Pakistani women have kept on excelling and breaking gender stereotypes in each and every walk of life. Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa lauded Pakistani women's contributions to the glory of the nation, saying, "In uniform, women have proved their mettle by contributing copiously to diverse fields, serving the nation and humanity." When it comes to the military, Nigar Johar became Pakistan's first woman to be promoted to the rank of Lieutenant General. Since then, Johar, who is also the first female general surgeon of Pakistan's army, has been at the forefront of the fight against the coronavirus with other women in uniform. In January 2020, the United Nations Secretary General awarded medals to 15 Pakistani women officers for their peacekeeping mission in the Congo. Women security personnel are highly contributing to the safety of citizens in their home country as well.
Today on the World's Women Day, I want to deliver the message to the women of the nation that don't wait for someone else to come and speak for you. It's you who can change the world.
Female officials are also an important and active component of the airport security force. They are enrolled in almost all fields and aspects of civil aviation security and trained to fight in various fields like anti-terrorism.
I feel proud that I am representing the women in tribal areas while standing shoulder to shoulder with men to defend our country.
In academia, Lahore's Zara Naeem made the country proud by scoring the highest marks at the global level in the ACCA exam. Another young Pakistani girl, Emma Alam, emerged as the winner of the World Memory Championship 2020.
Pakistan's President Arif Alvi says Islam has guaranteed the rights of women. Addressing a ceremony on International Women's Day, he directed the Health Ministry to expedite work on telehealth. He said Pakistan undertook legislation to ensure women's rights. The president said services of women they rendered during COVID-19 are highly praiseworthy. EU Ambassador Andrula Kaminara says Pakistan's efforts to give financial stability to women through ACCUSES program are appraisable. Pakistan's Minister for Human Rights, Shireen Mazari, said the West is not talking about abuse of Kashmiri women at the hands of Indian forces. She said India is not chastised for using mass rape of Kashmiri women as a weapon of war. Moving on, Indian forces have killed at least 675 women in occupied Jammu and Kashmir since January 2001. According to a report, occupation forces personnel have molested and gang-raped more than 11,000 women in the valley. Additionally, the unabated Indian state terrorism has so far rendered nearly 23,000 women widowed since 1989. The report says over a dozen women, including Hurriyat leaders, are facing illegal detention inside jails in occupied Kashmir and India. In the past year, harassment against women journalists has also surged. Meanwhile, the number of women suffering from multiple psychological problems continues to rise. Thousands of more women have joined farmers' protests on the outskirts of the Indian capital, New Delhi, to mark International Women's Day. Thousands of women protesters, some of them driving tractors, arrived in Delhi from Punjab and Haryana. Farm leaders said the day is to be dedicated to women farmers, and the speakers too will be women. Meanwhile, Congress leader Priyanka Gandhi Vadra lashed out at the Modi government over the laws. Gandhi said that she will support the farmers' protests even if it takes 100 months. Addressing a farmers' grand meet, she said Delhi has insulted more than 200 martyrs that died in the protest. A veteran U.S. journalist, Fareed Zakaria, says India's democratic decline has been steady and swift under Prime Minister Modi's rule. Referring to Disha Ravi's arrest, Zakaria said India has clamped down over the freedom of speech over the past few years. Quoting Freedom House's report, Zakaria said the watchdog downgraded India from free to partly free for the first time in 30 years. According to the research group article 14, over 7,000 people have faced sedition charges in the Modi era. In regards to that, the Indian government warned of growing consensus abroad on attacking Modi as a dictator. In his tweet, Subramanian Swamy of BJP said the party must address the issue. And Pope Francis, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, has concluded his historic visit to Iraq. On the last day of his visit, he met the father of a Syrian boy whose body washed up on a Turkish beach 6 years ago. President Barham Saleh accompanied the 84-year-old pontiff down a red carpet to his flight. Pope held multiple meetings with Muslim and Christian leaders and preached peace and coexistence over war. During the first ever papal visit to Iraq, he toured 4 cities, including Mosul, the former ISIS stronghold. The pontiff also made a historical first in meeting Iraq's top Shiite Muslim cleric, Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. More stories after a short break. Stay with us. We're back. The number of coronavirus infections in Brazil has crossed 11 million, with over 265,000 deaths. Globally, the virus has claimed nearly 2.6 million lives and infected over 116 million people so far. More details on the pandemic in this report.
Controversies surrounding the coronavirus have piled up as the world marks 1 year to the day COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. As the United States approaches 29 million cases, experts say the rise of new variants is putting the country at the tipping point of another surge. Top U.S. infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci has warned that it is too early to end social restrictions, but the Texas governor says the state can reopen fully next week. Meanwhile, protesters in Idaho burned face masks to oppose restrictions in the UK. Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Charles have praised people throughout the Commonwealth for uniting during the pandemic.
Coronavirus pandemic has affected every country of the Commonwealth, cruelly robbing countless people of their lives and livelihoods. Amidst such heartbreaking suffering, however, the extraordinary determination, courage and creativity with which people have responded has been an inspiration to us all.
The European Union's Medicine Agency has urged member states to refrain from granting approvals for Russia's Sputnik V while it reviews its effectiveness. Meanwhile, Austria has suspended inoculations with the Oxford vaccine as it investigates the death of one person after the shots.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 22 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 overnight, bringing the total to 13,227. The Health Ministry has reported nearly 1,600 cases over the last 24 hours. The ministry said so far over 592,000 people tested positive for the virus, of which more than 560,000 have recovered. The ministry said the number of active cases stands above 18,000. It added 2,071 people are currently being treated in hospitals for the virus. And Pakistan's Navy ship Alamgir has participated in the bilateral exercises with ships from Japan, Oman, Russia, and the U.S. in the Gulf of Aden. In a tweet, the Navy's media wing said the exercise will enhance collaborative efforts for maritime security. It added that the deployment is part of the Pakistan Navy's initiative to contribute toward regional maritime security. The Navy said Alamgir will support international efforts against maritime terrorism, piracy, and narcotics. Meanwhile, Washington and Seoul have reached an agreement on sharing the cost of U.S. forces stationed in South Korea. U.S. State Department says the proposed agreement contains a negotiated meaningful increase in South Korea's contribution. A State Department spokesperson said the pact will strengthen bilateral alliance and shared defense. In a statement, she said the agreement reflects Washington's commitment to reviving alliances across the globe. The proposed 6-year special measures agreement will replace the previous one that expired in 2019. Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry said both sides will hold a signing ceremony after completing internal procedures. South Korea hosts around 28,500 U.S. soldiers as deterrents to North Korea. And the parliamentary members of Libya's rival parties have gathered in the Sirte city to debate the proposed unity government. Parliament spokesperson said the session aims to debate giving confidence to the government announced by Prime Minister-designate. He said the lawmakers will also discuss on a legitimate quorum and what majority is needed to confer confidence. However, if Parliament is unable to agree on approving the new government, the UN Talks Forum is expected to do so instead. Prime Minister-designate Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh was appointed through a political dialogue held in Geneva by the United Nations. Now, demonstrators burnt tires to block main roads all over Lebanon for the 7th straight day. They vent out anger at more than a year of economic crisis and 6 months of political paralysis. The road blockages caused traffic jams and triggered a call by the head of the hospitals union. He warned such moves are preventing oxygen supplies from reaching medical centers treating coronavirus patients. But the demonstrators have threatened an escalation if the state fails to take appropriate measures. Earlier, caretaker Prime Minister Hassan Diab threatened to quit to raise the pressure on those blocking the formation of a new government. Authorities in Senegal have lifted the detention order of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Sonko, who is also accused in a rape case, was arrested on his way to court for disturbing public order. His lawyer Bamba Sis told the press the prosecutor had lifted the order against his client. Sonko will still testify before the judge later today on the accusation of rape and death threats. Protests have been taking place in Senegal for nearly a week following Sonko's arrest earlier this month. At least 5 people have died and many injured in the unrest. And Meghan Markle has accused the British royal family of racism, lying and pushing her to the brink of suicide. The Duchess of Sussex made the claims in an explosive TV interview that looks set to shake the monarchy to its core. The 39-year-old said she ended up having suicidal thoughts after getting married into the royal family. She added that her son Archie had been denied the title of prince because of his skin color.
The 39-year-old said she ended up having suicidal thoughts after getting married into the royal family. She added that her son Archie had been denied the title of prince because of his skin color.
So we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
In the interview, Prince Harry said he shared Meghan's concerns. He said his family cut them off financially and his father, Prince Charles, let them down and refused to take his calls. Buckingham Palace has yet to comment publicly on the interview.
Moving on, new data has revealed that humans have degraded or destroyed roughly 2/3 of the world's original tropical rainforest cover. In a report, the nonprofit Rainforest Foundation Norway has raised alarm that a key natural buffer against climate change is vanishing. The nonprofit says forest loss is also a major contributor to climate warming emissions. It reveals that more than half of the global rainforest destruction since 2002 has been in South America's Amazon and bordering rainforests. Southeast Asian islands, mostly belonging to Indonesia, collectively rank second in terms of forest destruction. Now, the U.S. has urged computer network operators to gauge whether their systems were targeted amid Microsoft's email hacks. The White House says the recent software patch still left serious vulnerabilities. In a statement, it said the active threat is still developing and must be taken very seriously. The White House added top U.S. security officials are working to decide the next steps following the breach. Meanwhile, Microsoft says it was working with the government and others to help guide customers. It also urged impacted clients to update software as soon as possible. More than 20,000 U.S. organizations were compromised by the hack of the Outlook email program. On to the latest in business. European stocks have edged higher as global investors monitor progress towards the U.S. COVID-19 relief bill against the backdrop of rising bond yields. The Pan-European Stock 600 index gained 0.6% in early trading after U.S. markets rebounded strongly late last week. London's FTSE rose by 0.2%, while Germany's DAX edged over 0.6%. France's CAC 40 also grew over 0.3%, while a jump in Brent crude futures above $70 per barrel for first time since the COVID-19 pandemic has stoked concerns about inflation. And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.